Welcome to Careers in the Spotlight with Founders for Schools. We're here today to celebrate National Careers Week. We have two speakers with us, Danny and Dolores. For the people who are joining us, we ask that you keep your video off and also mute your speakers so that we get a chance to hear the speakers. You will have the opportunity to ask questions, but we'll do that in the chat box at the end of the session. So thank you very much for joining us. My name is Alison. I am one of the engagement managers at Founders for Schools. Founders for Schools is a charity that looks to inspire and educate young people about jobs and what is needed to enter the world of work. We're very lucky that we have lots of volunteers who come along and share their career stories with us. Let's take us to our speakers today. So first of all, we have Danny, and then after that we will ask Dolores to tell us a little bit about their career. But if you could both start, when you do your bit, with telling us who you are, what your job is, and the company that you work for at the moment. Okay, over to you, Danny. And you're on mute.
So, everyone hear me okay?
Yes, yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Danny Otoole. I'm an engineering manager for Hitachi ABB Power Grids in the UK. We look after renewable connections and enabling power grids to connect renewable energy into the national grid. We're manufacturers of products for that, transformers and switchgear. And the part that I work for is the service division. And we make sure all that goes in and works properly and keeps the electricity flowing in the UK.
Would it be possible for you to tell us a little bit about how you became an engineering manager? So what you did at school, what you did after school, and what you've done to get to where you are now?
Sure. So at school, my plans were to do A-levels and go on to do my degree. So I did 2 weeks of A-levels and realised that it wasn't for me. I didn't like being in a classroom. I didn't like that environment. I was more of an outdoors person. I was very fortunate at the time. I'd applied for several apprenticeships and I managed to get one with the electricity board as it was then. I then did a 4-year apprenticeship and in electrical fitting, so installing substations. I subsequently went back to college later in life. So although I've risen to the level of engineer, I didn't go on the conventional route. And I think one of the areas I like about engineering is there are different routes to climb up the ladder. There's not just one route that fits everyone. The early failures, when I gave up A-levels, that was quite a shock to my family because I think they had plans for me to go to university and achieve all that. But I think the key thing for me was not to let that set me back. I sort of reset a plan, was fortunate enough to get my apprenticeship and then sort of worked really hard at doing that. I think it was important for me that I did something I enjoyed. I think if I'd have stuck with the A-levels, it wasn't something I enjoyed doing, so I wouldn't have put 100% effort into it. I was probably even into my 20s, I wasn't really sure that I still wanted to be in the electrical industry, but I was enjoying what I was doing. And then I think by the time I was into my mid-20s, I was pretty sure that this is what I wanted to carry on doing. I think just that was a sort of brief route into my career and background. What we do now, I've gone from building old substations and relying on old sort of fossil fuels. And in my time in the industry, I've seen this huge move towards renewable energy. And that's something I wanted to be part of. I've got sort of young children myself now, so something that's quite important to me that we leave something behind that is clean, renewable, and is not going to impact on the planet as much as what old fossil fuels did. I think just a couple of notes on what I do as well. I still really enjoy my job. I get involved with some of the largest engineering projects in the world. In the UK, especially at the moment, some of the offshore wind projects and renewable projects that are going on are some of the biggest in the world. And I'm fortunate enough to work for a company that are heavily involved with helping deliver those. So that's quite a good thing. I think the other thing in our industry, and something I've sort of noticed as I've got a little bit older, I've become more of a coach to young engineers. So I've seen the path that I took, and I had some really good mentors and people that guided me. And I try and be that person now. So I try and take sort of young, keen engineers coming into the industry and guidance.
Oh, you had a little bit of feedback there. Sorry.
Yeah, and just try and give them that sort of guidance.
Okay. And you said that you'd applied for 7 apprenticeships. Were they all engineering style apprenticeships, or was there a variety there?
I took my army tests and got offered several apprenticeships with the army. There's like an aptitude test that you do with them, and they offer you a list of jobs that you can go for. And then I applied to all the utilities. So back then it was gas, water, and electricity. And I knew I wanted to work outside. I enjoyed outdoor leisure pursuits. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to be taken on by the electricity board.
Okay, so you're lucky then that you found the one that was right for you.
I didn't know at the time though. I didn't really know at the time. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I couldn't have told you when I was 18 or 19 that I would still be in this industry. It's probably not until I got into my mid-20s that I really sort of discovered a passion for it.
Okay, and as you said quite rightly, engineering is a very good career option for people that want to take different pathways into it. It's not as straightforward. You do school, university, and then you step in a career. It can be quite a varied path. So, okay, well that's great. Thank you for that. We'll come back to some questions when we've spoken to Dolores, because you have, I believe, a slightly different background, Dolores, from.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've got a couple of slides to share, which I'll share, but I'll sort of flick them on and flick them off again, because I'm sure everyone's had enough looking at death by PowerPoint, etc. But yeah, you know, I started, actually, my background, I had my family worked in manufacturing, so I grew up in factories. You know, I grew up hitting things with a mallet when they wouldn't work. Just really fascinated by how stuff got made, where it got made, the processes that were involved. Just really fascinated me. But I actually went to university to study psychology. Then went on into doing some additional marketing side, but I went into interface design. So kind of interface design in the early days, most of the guys listening to this probably will think that the internet always existed and we were always able to have classes like this. But in the early days of interface design for the internet, people didn't know how to interact. You know, you'd have a screen and you wouldn't know whether to go to the left, to the right. Did you use it like a book, or did you click? And actually that study of how people interact with technology was what really got me excited and interested. And that sort of then took me back into data management, data interaction, media interaction between the end user, which now for my current business is the manufacturer, so people on the shop floor, how we can provide them with the right data at the right time to do their jobs well. Just like Danny was saying, you know, it's what's being made and how things are being made, but they need a certain set of processes and information for that to happen. So how you can utilize that, but with my understanding of psychology and people, just combining those two things, which has been so it's been a sort of slightly wiggly journey, but I'm now very much entrenched into process management, manufacturing, and some of the clever bits of machine learning and AI that are now starting to drive processes in manufacturing as well. So it was a bit of a wiggle. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, you know, as Danny just said, it's, you don't have to be clear, but I'm really passionate that there are a huge number of opportunities in manufacturing for everybody now. You know, yes, you've got the engineer side, but there's lots of information I don't know how to do Danny's job. But I do know how to bring some technology to Danny's job to help him do that. Not I'm sure, Danny, you're brilliant at it. You don't need anything, but you know, to help guys on the shop floor, help guys in process management to actually get the information they need quicker. And I don't go promising to know everything inside of the technology or inside of the manufacturing and engineering. But you can come to it with going, I can bring this bit and ask questions. And I think often when we're looking at a career, we think we're going to need to know everything. If you're looking at medicine, you kind of do need to know everything, because you can't stop halfway through an operation and go, oh, how do I do this? Can I just go and check something? But over the process you do. But I think in technology and manufacturing now, there's so many different areas that you can get involved, and it's so important that pretty much any career path, as long as you follow something you really enjoy, when you start those A levels, you start the your GCSEs, whichever stage you're at looking, do the things you enjoy, do the things that encourage you to be curious and engaged and have and really, you know, love and get excited about what you do. I've written on here some other things that are key to me for my career. Is I wanted a career that helped me with, you know, having a family. Again, as Danny said, as young children now, you know, I've been able to work my career path around having my children and stuff, which I think is really important. And in manufacturing and engineering, there's so much technology. It's changing all the time that you've got to stay constantly learning anyway. So you can come at it from different possessions at any time that you want. I just put in there, I'm a passionate LFC supporter, and Danny just picked up an LFC mug. I hope that's your mug and not one you just picked up in the coffee room. So yeah, I think it's really important that you take that journey in whichever way it goes. You asked a few more questions in terms of things that we would advise, and you know, for Total Control Pro, we talk about this process of connecting, analyzing, adapting, and evolving. And I think it's really important for young people looking at a career path. The most important thing is connections. Coming onto something like this, where you can reach out to other people in other areas and then start to reach out and find a mentor, find someone who's kind of doing the sort of thing you want to do, maybe, you know, experiencing the kind of things you want to experience. That's what the apprenticeships were based on, finding someone with that knowledge and it being passed down. And I think those connections and building on those are really important. I had no idea that some of the stuff I learned whilst working in my mum and dad's factory would come back to serve me, you know, 30 years later as I was supporting, you know, shop floor process improvements. You know, I didn't know there would be a benefit then, but I took it on board. I learned stuff, and it can often come back and enrich the things you're doing later down the line. Yeah, there's a lot on there, but so that connect, then it's analyze, you know, look at the stuff that's working and stuff that isn't. You know, some of your you know, what Danny did, I loved. You know, he started A levels, realized that wasn't for him. Don't worry about taking something on, starting a path and going, you know what, this isn't working for me, I'm going to do something else and try on something else. And engineering, manufacturing, technology is all about trying stuff, failing fast and doing it again. And I don't think in school we're encouraged to fail, but actually in our world, you know, we find more things that don't work than we do things that do work. So to actually embrace the fact, you might be sitting there thinking, oh, I'm doing all this stuff, you know, nothing quite kind of comes together, and I haven't quite found my way. But actually that's brilliant, because you found all those things that don't work, and you'll find the one that does really work for you. And then when we talk about adapting and evolving, you know, I heard just one of the polls that just popped up just then. People are genuinely worried about the impact of COVID on careers and what's going on. And in our industry, we've brought on 6 new apprentices this year. 4 of whom I've never met other than via Teams like this. They've been working from home, but we've been training them, supporting them and bringing them through because, it's more important than ever that we have the right people. And it might be technology, it might be manufacturing, it might be engineering, and there's all sorts of automation and robotics and all sorts of stuff. I mean, ABB are brilliant at that, but still at the core of all the business is people and who you are and what you bring. So if you are excited about being involved and demonstrate that and willing to work, then there's always going to be a career inside of this area for you. So I think that's just to address any of those fears or concerns. So yeah, the need to adapt and evolve.
Okay. So you mentioned about the coaching, and that was something that you followed up, and you also mentioned this, Danny, that you said that you're doing a lot of work bringing on young engineers now. So if a young person is starting to look at coming into the world of work, what sort of things do you see them doing that you just wish you could take them aside and say, you might want to think about this, or you might want to think about doing that instead, to help them maybe land that job or the interview?
I think for me personally, I don't expect any young person to turn up with the full skill set. That's a long process. I've been in the industry 30 years. I'm still learning. What I do look for is the right attitude. There's no skill in turning up on time. There's no skill in being polite. There's no skill in taking care of yourself. Those are basic things that people can do. And we do a lot of work with unconscious bias in our company, but unfortunately it does exist, and first impressions do count a lot. So I think some of the attitude is really important. Are you keen? Do you turn up on time? Do you maybe go that extra little bit further? Those things we can't teach. That's got to come from within the person. And I think for me, those are the key things I look for if I'm going to identify one guy in a group of guys that I think will succeed.
Okay. And I take it by guys, you mean the generic term for people there?
Sorry,
not just
a group of young engineers. Yes,
no,
yes.
I'm just teasing because you did say about the gender guys. So yeah, that's exactly what you mean. Yes, so I get that. And how about yourself, Dolores?
Really, I agree. It's that, I talked about sort of being interested and curious and evidencing that somewhere. If someone comes in to us, they're working with manufacturers, they might know nothing about them when they start working with us, and that's completely what we expect. But it's not hard to learn. Information is available everywhere now. So, you want to see that they've done a bit of research, they've done a bit of looking around who you are. They should know who you are, know the company, know the customers you work for. And also, I suppose, do that research, but don't think you have to answer all the questions with it. Come with questions. So you might read something and think, well, that looked interesting, but I have no idea what this, manufacturing execution systems are, or why robotics work in there, or what that means, and then be prepared to ask the questions. So don't come thinking you have to act like you know it all, and don't come without having looked at some stuff and created some questions. And that's that, willing to work and willing to learn and willing to stay curious is really key.
Okay. And when you think back to when you were starting your careers and you were trying to work out what it was that you wanted to do, what would you now say to your younger self, having had all that experience, that about maybe you were worried about something, or something in your own head was a much bigger deal than it actually was, looking back? Is there anything there that you could give advice on to the young people?
I think I sometimes had a fear of failure, and looking back now, I realise that the things I failed at, I learnt the most from. And I don't think, if I was giving my younger self advice, it would be not to fear failure. You know, no one expects you to get everything right all of the time. And some of the greatest achievements in engineering and in all aspects of life have come from failures. So that would be my point.
Yeah. And I think it's, for me, it's, God, those first few years, it was all so significant. Like, you know, it's got to be done, and it's so important I get the right job, the right interview, the right thing said in that one moment. And actually, when I look back now, I go, actually, I could have just lightened up and had enjoyed myself a little bit more. And that's enjoyed myself in work, because, I remember my first boss, oh my goodness, I was absolutely petrified of him. And I made it just so kind of like, I've got to get everything right and do all this exactly as Danny was saying. But actually, now I can imagine what the boss was feeling, what he felt like, and I kind of go, gosh, I must have been a nightmare. So you start to see things with different perspectives. So it is that, just enjoy your work. You spend most of your life doing it, so just find the way to enjoy what you're doing. Then that doesn't mean, because I think sometimes that gets said, and it says, just play hop from this to this to this to this, and don't settle. Unless you really give something your all, you won't know if it's really for you. But if you go to it with that kind of attitude of, I'm going to enjoy this and get some things out of it and create something for myself, then you've got a much better chance of success. And I would definitely tell myself that. Let off the pressure.
Good. Please do feel free to ask any questions in the chat, but while we're waiting for questions, I have another one for you both. What has been your proudest career moment? Or some of your proudest career moments, because it might be more than one.
We get to connect a lot of big projects to the national grid, and in 2016, I was in charge of energising, at the time, the largest UK onshore wind farm. That was I'd worked on the project for about 18 months, and to see that come to fruition and actually get across the line and energise was that was a pretty special moment.
How about you, Dolores?
So there's been a number that I look back on now and think, gosh, that really was significant when it happened. But actually, it was 2019. I was awarded the Women in Innovation Award from Innovate UK, and for me, it was as much about, yes, the stuff that we were creating inside of our business, but also that I was the eldest in that group. I was a woman. I had taken a career break to have my children, and I could still come back and offer something and be of value. And so it was that recognition, as well as opportunity to actually use that. And it's actually the platform that enabled me to get involved with Founders for Schools and those elements. So there's always another time to come back and do things in another way as well. So that was really proud for me.
Okay, and when you're thinking, you've obviously been in your industries for quite a while now, and you've seen significant amount of change in your industries. What do you think the next 5, 10, maybe even 15 years will be like for your industry?
I think
where do you think the barriers will be, if that makes it easier? A slightly smaller question.
The challenges for the electricity network are vast, because we're coming away from an old technology and we're trying to find new energy sources. Now, unfortunately, with the renewable market, those energy sources are in some pretty far-flung places, the North Sea, heading up towards Shetland, where the wind is good. So those are the challenges, because we haven't got transmission networks, we haven't got the infrastructure to bring the energy where it's needed. So over the next 10 to 15 years, those are the challenges to how can we take those energy sources in those remote locations and deliver that to where it's needed.
So when you say challenge, that sounds as though you're also applying there's also going to be a lot of opportunity for the sector?
Oh,
That's
for
going
sure.
to be...
The renewable industry is a huge growth industry, huge, and there's masses of opportunity for every level of entrant, whether it be a degree student or whether it be a craftsperson who has come through an apprenticeship, and right across the spectrum. There'll be huge opportunities.
And I absolutely I second that, and I think it is in the same vein. Really, it's that how we can optimize the resources that we have. We only have a finite number of raw resources, you know, on the planet, and in manufacturing we're making stuff and we're using those resources. But it's how we bring the technology and the manufacturing to bear alongside sustainability. How we create smarter environments in which we are, you know, making things, how we serve the populations better, but don't just start making more and more. You know, we break away from fast fashion but come to more effective use of resources. And I think that's an area where there's going to be automation in production and manufacturing, but there's also going to be a far better and more expanded kind of supply chain connections and things as well across the globe. So and for where we are in communication and connection of that element, that's a massive opportunity for us.
Okay, we have a question now from the listeners. When did you first choose the job you're doing right now? So not the ones that you started out with, but the ones that you're doing right now. When did you start doing that?
The one I'm doing now, my career's been funny. I've just moved from, I've kind of fell into roles. I've not really had any grand plan. I've always enjoyed what I've done, and I'd move from project to project, and I find that gradually over the last 10 years that's gone more towards renewable. But it's once you're in that industry, it is such a vast, wide landscape. I think it gives you lots of opportunities to go any which way you want, if you know, and that includes overseas work or staying in the UK. But yeah, I'm not a great planner personally. I just kind of get involved with projects, really develop a love for them, and then move on to the next one comes along.
Okay.
Very
How about
good.
yourself?
Well, I actually, in one sense, I fell into it. I got asked to come and serve a client with a piece of their technology and help them expand it. Being both two sides, so that sort of technology side and the entrepreneurial side, I looked at it and thought, actually, there's an opportunity for us to move this forward. So that was back in 2013. It's a business myself and my co-directors have built up, so it was something I had to do while we were building it up alongside another job that I was working in before we could transition into running it full time. But I've been full time in it since 2016, which has given me the two options: one, to work in an environment that I love, and second, to work for myself, which I also love. So those two elements really brought me attraction.
Okay, well that leads us to, I think, what will be the last question, quite nicely from the listeners. What motivates you most in your job? And can I ask for a really short, quick answer?
I really enjoy what I do, so it's not a chore going to work, and I think looking at these new renewable connections and projects, it's a chance for me to try and make a difference there.
Yeah, for me, it's to make a difference, leave a legacy, make sure that something I do makes a difference and an impact on those in the future.
Okay. Well, on that note, thank you very much, Danny and Dolores, for coming along and speaking to us today. I hope everybody enjoyed that and found it as inspiring and as educating as I did. They both sound like excellent industries and careers to be in at the moment.